What is important to us is that this foundation was founded by families together with professionals, and the connections with the EACD is very straightforward because the cooperation between parents and the stakeholders is at the heart of EACD since a few years. And I'm very glad that the topic of this year is supporting innovation for participation, because what we wrote in our articles is that research is useless unless it benefits those who need it. So participation is really the focus of our action and what we need to. So it's a great pleasure to welcome Farida. Usually what we support is we support researchers, and in the previous year we welcomed researchers giving these talks. And when EACD proposed that Farida Bedwei be the recipient of this lecture and give this lecture, I thought that there was no better idea than to give the floor to, I don't know what word to use, because in the various symposiums I've seen that you call these people disabled people, customers, stakeholders, and I heard one word yesterday that I thought was very useful. They call those people involved super users, and I thought it may be a good word. So I don't know whether I welcome a super user, but I welcome a super creative person. Farida Bedwei comes from Ghana. I don't want to talk too much about her. She will give the talk, but she's a software engineer. She developed software. She has been involved in developing software for banking and microfinance. But what I've seen on her Wikipedia page is that she's super clever, because you know what she started with in software development? She developed a software I've seen for the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice and Pay Bureau in a country. So being involved in the payroll of those of the Commission on Human Rights, I think is super clever when you need some support in your country. So welcome, and it's very great to have your talk, and we'll give you a small present when you leave. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Farida Bedwei. As he said, I am a software engineer by profession. I am a tech entrepreneur. I have a tech company which now specializes in fintech. We build banking solutions for the microfinance industry in Ghana. So I'm going to talk about my journey and how having cerebral palsy led me into tech. I always say that I probably may not have been a tech entrepreneur if I didn't have cerebral palsy. I may have been a ballerina or some other interesting profession, but because of my disability, I was a bit limited in what I could do. So this is the subject of my presentation. So I was born in Lagos, Nigeria in 1979. I was born with a blocked intestine known as jejunal atresia, for those of you medical professionals who know what it is. And I was operated on when I was 2 days old. I have an interesting scar as a result. The scar grew as I grew. I was in the incubator for 6 weeks after the operation, and I became jaundiced during that period, and that was how I got the cerebral palsy. My jaundice was a result of the rhesus incompatibility of my parents. My mom is O negative, and my late father was A positive. They could not treat the jaundice until they were sure the operation had been successful. So they started the phototherapy when I was 10 years old. Later on, we found out that the damage had already been done by that time. So I came home after 6 weeks in the hospital. I have an older sister, so my mom knew what milestones the babies were supposed to meet at every point in time. But I wasn't meeting those milestones. I wasn't sitting, I wasn't standing, I wasn't crawling, I wasn't walking. So at the age of 1, she took me to the UK, Great Ormond Children's Hospital for a checkup, and lo and behold, I was diagnosed with CP. So we went back to Lagos, did physiotherapy for a year, moved to Belgrade for 8 months, continued physio there. Apparently back then they had a great program for those kind of neuro conditions in Belgrade. You're talking about 1980 back then, when it was still under the Soviet Republic of Yugoslavia. Then we did speech therapy. As you can see, it was very effective because I like talking a lot. Then we moved to the Caribbean. My dad got a job with the UNDP, so then we started moving around the world, as you will see. When we went to Dominica, there was no physiotherapist on the island who knew about cerebral palsy. The only lone physiotherapist on the island was specialized in stroke rehabilitation. So we had to go to Miami every 3 months for a review. When we go there, the physiotherapist there will show my mom what exercises to do for me, and she'll take pictures. Then when we get back to the island, she'll do the video with me. Then when we go to the physiotherapist on the island, then she'll show the physiotherapist what exercises she has to do with me. And that is how we did it on the island for the 3 years that we lived there. Then I started being homeschooled by my mother at the age of 3. Then I was homeschooled with a British correspondence course, so basically whatever work I did, she would send my schoolwork to the center in the UK. They will evaluate where I have reached and all that stuff. Then we moved to the UK for a few months. Then we moved to Commonwealth for 6 months. Then we moved back to the UK for 9 months, and I went to a special school for the first time called Fox Denton. I tried looking it up, and I found that it's no longer in existence. But back then, it seemed to be the good special school. I was living in Manchester at the time. And the interesting thing about Fox Denton at the time was that they had started practicing inclusion. So if we had stayed there longer, they were planning on moving me to a regular school. But we left before I could be moved. Then we went to Grenada, another island on the Caribbean, for 2 years. Then it started back to homeschooling again. Then we moved to Ghana in 1988. I was 9 at the time, and my sister had a private math tutor, and I started taking lessons with him. And it was discovered that I was very good in it, to the extent that he started actually teaching me what he was teaching my sister, who is 2 years older than me. Then I did a computer introductory course at the age of 11, 12. I don't know how many of you remember those courses back then. Lotus 1, 2, 3, Word Perfect, DBase 4. You are talking about the early 1990s. Yeah, those were the courses to be done back then. These days, when you talk about them, people have no idea what they are. Yeah. So after, I did very well in the computer courses. Now, prior to that, most of my schoolwork and things was done using the computer because of the illegibility of my handwriting. I could write, but then after a while, it got a bit illegible because I got tired easily, and because of the way I hold the pen, it was you had to be used to my handwriting before you could read what I wrote. But then it was good enough for me to get into junior high school at the age of 12. I did very well in my, basically in Ghana, after 3 years of junior high school, you have to write an entrance exam to go to senior high school. I did very well. I could have gotten any of the best schools I wanted. But the disability, unfortunately, terrains of the schools in Ghana did not permit me to go to senior high school. So I started a diploma in the management of information systems at the age of 16. I was the youngest in my class because it was a professional course which was done by people who had finished high school as well as university. And I started working part-time at a computer training institute while I was doing the diploma. Then after that, the diploma exposed me to the various aspects of IT, and I chose the area that I wanted to specialize in, software development. So, and I realized that in that field, it's best to learn on the job. So I went to look for a job at a software company called SOP, and I stayed there for 3 years. I made my mark in the industry. Then I left after 3 years for a brand new startup called Rancard. Then I went back to do another diploma while I was working at an Rancard for 3 years. Then after I finished that diploma, I had 2 diplomas. I wanted a degree. I shopped around various universities. I got accepted to the University of Hertfordshire in the UK for final year admission because based on my work experience and my educational background, they exempted me from the first 2 years. So I went straight into final year and graduated with a second class upper. Then I went back to work with Rancard for 5 more years. Then I went to work with a financial institution for 2 years. Then I started Logicare. Logicare is the name of my company. As I said, we specialize in fintech for the microfinance industry. And we have over 200 microfinance companies using our platform. And yeah, so that is where I am professionally right now. But that is just my day job. I do a lot of other things, which I will talk about now. I'm a disability rights activist. I'm very vocal on the rights of people with disabilities in Ghana as well as West Africa. I've been featured on CNN African Voices. I've been featured on BBC's Deutsche Welle TV, as well as a number of local TV programs and radio programs back in Ghana. I am an executive member of ShareCare Ghana. ShareCare Ghana is an organization which supports and advocates for the rights of persons with autoimmune and neurological conditions and their caregivers. We have a free clinic which offers physio 3 times a week to an impoverished community in Accra. I'm the chairperson of the Resource Mobilization Committee under the Ghana Federation of the Disabled. I am a member of the jury for this year's Her Abilities Award, an award which recognizes the achievement of women with disabilities. So please go ahead and nominate any woman with a disability who is doing something great in your country. We like to have a wide range of women to choose from this year. And as I said, I've been featured on many media platforms advocating for the rights of people with disabilities. Now, I'm also a writer. Yeah. So I also express my activism through the written word. But I believe that it can go further than actually speaking. People remember what they read more than what they hear. So, in 2010, I launched my first book, Definition of a Miracle. It fictionalizes some of the experiences I had when I came to Ghana, when I moved to Ghana in 1988. And then in 2018, I thought about it that as a child, I loved my superheroes. I loved my He-Man, She-Ra, Superman, all those superheroes. But there was nobody who looked like me or had my disability. So I decided to write a script and collaborate with a graphic comic design company and come up with the first superhero with cerebral palsy called Kamza. And it was launched at the end of last year. And so right now we have a superhero who every little girl or little boy with cerebral palsy can identify with, because it doesn't. And for me, what I made sure of was that she got her powers through her assistive devices, so that to make them proud of using those assistive devices, because I mean those of us who have to use crutches, walkers, wheelchairs, after a while sometimes we got frustrated with them, we resent them. But then if a child sees a pair of crutches or a rollator or wheelchair that can fly and give superpowers and all those things, it may make him or her feel excited about using their devices. So that is it, and I hope I've come to the end of my presentation, and I'm willing to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Okay, so Farida, you proved me wrong in using words like customers and so on, and super users. So now the good word is superhero, so it's much better. Okay, any questions that would come from the audience? As there is much light, it's a bit difficult to shout if you want to have the microphone. Maybe the first question to start, making a liaison with the previous talk by William Gort. He talked about transitioning to adulthood, and he started saying that it's a person and in the environment. And you have explained how you found your way as a person, but can you comment on, is there any information that would need to be provided to your environment? You are an activist, so you wrote this cartoon for the girls in your country and around the world, but do you think there is more action needed towards the environment to prevent some kind of social isolation of disabled adults?
Yeah. There's a lot of work needs to be done. I mean, in the first place, most places are not disability friendly. It's difficult to move around. It's difficult to even go to school, because although we have started practicing inclusive education, most of the educational personnel do not know how to deal with children with disabilities, so they are turned away. And there's a lot that needs to be done, as well as educating the society, because it's still seen as a taboo to have a child with a disability. So some people are removed from their communities, and just because they have a disabled child. Some of them are even told to kill the child just because the child has a disability. And that is the reality of what we face back at home. Although it's changing, it's not changing as quickly as I'd like it to change. but at least we are making a little bit of strides with it. Yeah.
Okay. And another question, if I don't know if you can check the time. Do we have 1 or 2 minutes? Okay. Another question, you've been all over the world, so you have lots of experience of various culture, from Europe to America and Africa. What should we take positive from Africa? And what would you like to bring to your country? For instance, when we talk, I talked yesterday with some young researchers who will come to help us this afternoon for the European Family Forum, and they come from Nigeria, Ethiopia, and other countries. And what they said that the family support could be very strong compared to what they've seen in other countries. So what you would like to share with us?
I mean, obviously, we have a strong family support network back home. I mean, if your family is accepting of having a child with a disability, they rally around and they support you a lot. I mean, I had the privilege of having such a supportive family, especially my mom, who put her life on hold for 12 years to raise me and give me the necessary therapies and education that I wanted. Some people are not so lucky, but if you are blessed to be in such a family, then it works for you. From here to, I think your social system is very good. So basically, even if you do not have the resources, the state will look after you. That is something that we don't have back in various countries in Africa. We don't have that social support. We are now trying to implement it in Ghana, but it hasn't taken off the way it should take off. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. A question over there?
Hi. I have first of all a comment and then a question. My comment is that Fox Denton School merged with another school and is now Kingfisher School in Oldham, and I've been there fairly recently, so that was a lovely link for me. My question is, I think asking you about priorities. One way of approaching development of services for people with cerebral palsy in Ghana and other similar countries would be to promote the education of healthcare professionals. The other would be to make society more accepting, more inclusive. Now, I would say those two things interact, but where do you think is the priority? In making society more inclusive or in developing professional services?
I didn't get the question. Can you please repeat the question?
You have only 2 or 3 minutes.
No, I didn't hear the question.
Okay, no, the question whether there are 2 ways to help improve the life of people in your country. Is it about training professionals, healthcare professionals, or on working on the society to be more inclusive? So what is the first step, working on society?
Aspect or the more medical one?
Okay, I think it is both. I mean, we need to train the professionals, we need to train, because in the fact that we don't have that many trained professionals, especially physiotherapists. And okay, the physiotherapists are improving in number these days, but the other people, the occupational therapists and speech therapists and all the other listen, we don't have that many. And we also need to do a lot of education to change the perception on disability in the country, because even if somebody is paid to look after your child with a disability, the person may not want to because of the stigma attached to it. So we have to change the mindset of society. We have to let them know that having a disability is not a curse. It does not mean that you did something bad in your previous life. That's why you have a child with a disability or something like that. That is the major hurdle we have to cross. Once we cross that, then we'll be able to get more people willing to go into the profession of caregiving for children and adults with various disabilities.
So now, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe you can give the last applause. Well, but not only the applause, because as you know, we have a serials award which was going to be given during these meetings, and the first one is this the Fondation Paris Cerebral Award. So I let the president, Alain Chatelain.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you talk about a curse, but I'm sure that your mother and your father looking to you must be so proud of you, and it's a joy to have you with them. Thank you very much.